In this video, we're going to cover 10 things you should do when you're getting ready to leave the executive director role. Hi, I'm Don Tebby, and since 1993, I've helped hundreds of nonprofit leaders plan for and manage the turnover in their chief executive position. Your decision to leave the executive director role sets major changes in motion, big changes for yourself and for your organization. Unwinding from the role and preparing the organization for the transition involves more than packing up your office. And the search for your successor takes more than just dusting off the job description, running a few ads, and hoping for the best. An executive director transition involves more than a hiring decision. It's a major organizational change process. When you decide to move on, your organization needs to devote time and resources to managing the transition. And this is especially true if you're a founder, long-tenured executive, or a transformational leader. The longer you've been in place, or the more significant your impact, the harder you are to succeed, and the more challenges your successor is likely to face. Now, as I pointed out in other videos and articles, every job, every career ends in a transition. It's just a matter of when, how, and how we'll manage when that transition finally occurs. An exit strategy approach outlined in this video and the companion article is all about making sure that the transition is well managed. An exit strategy can pave the way for a smoother transition. So what's an exit strategy? Well, first of all, it's a mindset and a set of plans to prepare yourself and your organization for your transition out of the role and to prepare the way for your successor. Instead of one massive plan, an exit strategy usually involves several plans covering three areas: how you'll prepare your organization, how you'll prepare yourself, and how you'll handle the departure announcement and the communications that follow. So here are 10 actions you can take to shape your exit strategy. Number 1, sort out your timeline and map out your exit. Obviously, your departure timeline will be a major factor in your leave-taking process. But as we'll discuss in a moment, your relationship with your board is another major ingredient. If you're leaving before your successor arrives, make sure that your board is ready to appoint an acting or interim executive. Best case scenario, it's going to take at least 4 to 6 months for your board to find, hire, and get your successor in the door. You can't will the process to go faster. Don't let the board labor under the illusion that they can simply speed up the process to find your successor. That leads to corner cutting, which is a major recipe for disaster. Make sure that you have bridge leadership. If you have a designated backup or someone appropriate within the organization to step into that acting role, that's great. Otherwise, start lining up sources of external interims. Start planning your exit as early as possible. Executive director succession takes time, and a common problem is starting to plan too late and then rushing through the process. If you're heading for retirement, begin your planning at least a year or two ahead of your departure, or more if possible. More time gives you more options. Starting early also allows you to ask big questions about your organization's future. It gives you time to work on organizational sustainability, time to strengthen your board or add bench depth to your executive team, for example. Now, if you haven't set a date yet or it's more than 18 months off, here are 2 things that you can do to prepare your organization. These are actions that you can take in what I call stealth mode without revealing your departure intentions. First of all, conduct an organizational sustainability review. This will help you identify legacy issues, which are things that might sidetrack or even derail your successor. Of course, you want to make sure that your organization is as strong as possible before you hand it over to your successor. Number 2, work with your board to prepare a succession policy and a backup plan for your position. The policy will give your board a roadmap for managing the transition, and the backup plan, among other things, will ensure that your job description gets updated. See my free executive succession planning guide, and you'll find a link to that free guide in the description below. Now, once you set a date and announce it, don't backpedal. Waffling on your departure date is a morale killer for your staff and potential internal successors. Action number 2, take charge of your exit. Your board has a responsibility for choosing your successor, but it's your responsibility to initiate the succession process. Part of leading well includes leaving well. And this means taking responsibility for your unique role in your transition out of the organization. Now, taking charge doesn't mean controlling the process nor renouncing all responsibility and dumping it in the board's lap. It means playing a responsible role in the succession process. Action number 3, don't be a lame duck. There's a popular notion out there that it's okay to check out early mentally and coast towards the exit. That's being derelict in your duties. If you're going to draw the paycheck, then do the job. Otherwise, get out of the way. And don't let the board marginalize your role because you've decided to leave. Executive transition is the biggest challenge your board members are likely to face in their entire tenure on the board. It should be an all leaders on deck exercise. Shutting out your perspective and experience is a colossally bad idea if you're leaving on good terms. Action number 4, embrace your 2 new jobs. As a leader in transition, you have 3 jobs. Number 1 is to lead the organization, but understand that the role will evolve as your departure date draws closer. Job number 2 is to prepare the organization for the transition, make sure that the organization is ready to work effectively with your successor, and ensure that everyone's prepared for the transition process. Job number 3, prepare yourself for life's next chapter. Ensure that you're ready for the transition into post-career life or whatever is next. Now, this is a special time. Encourage the leaders around you to step up and step into their transition roles. Action number 5, engage your board as early as possible. Now, how early you disclose your departure intentions to the boards likely can hinge on the strength of your relationship with your board, your trust in the board, and their confidence in you. Now, recognize your disclosure of your departure plans is going to be an oh my moment for the board. Now, to set the stage, sketch out a modest exit plan before you tell your board. Your plan will help set them on a path forward, and it'll show your willingness to partner with them. And make sure the board understands that a big part of their job is to manage the entire transition process, not just hire your successor. To help them understand their task, point them to this related video, What to Do When Your Executive Director Leaves, the board's 6 tasks. You'll find a link in the description below. Action number 6, manage the communications. Telling your board is part of a more extensive communications process. Typically, the departure planning begins with your private speculation. This is usually followed by a confidential discussion with the board chair and then the board. Now, beyond the board, the disclosure starts to become more public. Senior staff is next to find out, followed by line staff, and this should be quickly followed by critical stakeholders. And this is followed by a broader public departure announcement that's often concurrent with the announcement of the search for the successor. The final stage in the communications process is the announcement of the successor's appointment. Of course, along the way, there should be appropriate updates about the transition progress for the staff and other key stakeholders. Some executives choose to have what I call soft disclosure discussions with critical stakeholders early on when they begin the succession planning process. You'll want to weigh carefully whether this is the kind of early disclosure is a good idea with your stakeholders and your situation. Action number 7, prepare your organization. If your departure date is several years off, you have time to ask big questions about your organization. Questions such as, do we have the right board? Do we have the right people on the management team? Do we have a strong enough business model? If you're leaving within the next 12 months, the window to ask those big questions closes and the focus shifts to making sure that your organization is ready for the transition process. First of all, get your board ready to do a good job on the executive search, the selection of your successor, and guiding the transition. Second, help your senior management team get ready for your successor and help in the onboarding process of the new executive. Third, make sure that the executive director's job is successor ready, that it's been updated to reflect the organization's current and future leadership needs, and that it's a job a successor could actually do. Fourth, prepare your organization to work effectively with your successor. Action number 8, prepare yourself. If you're moving to another job, wrap up your current role before jumping into the new one. Fully close this chapter on your career before you open a new chapter. Consider whether you want to or can take a breather in between those 2 roles. And get a copy of The First 90 Days by Michael Watkins and develop an entry plan. If you're retiring, research on retirement satisfaction points to 5 areas that you want to pay attention to. Number 1, working on maintaining your health and well-being. Number 2, having an engaging post-career project, meaningful involvement, something that matters to you. Number 3, meaningful engagement in a social support network of people who are there for each other. Number 4, alignment with your spouse or life partner about retirement timing and how you're going to invest your time and your money. And 5, of course, post-retirement income. Prepare yourself, consider which of these 5 areas needs the most attention, and start working on them. Also consider whether you want to start lining up a bridge job, a bridge between full-time work and full-time retirement, or if you're going to pursue an Encore career. Watch out for the emotions. Transitions stir the emotions. Some of that's going to be inevitable, but some solid planning and communications on your part can provide your constituents with empathy and reassurance that's going to dampen down that emotional reaction. And for yourself, engage a coach, advisor, or support network to process your own emotions. Now, in my interviews with many retired executives said that the emotional journey was the most surprising thing about their transition. Number 10, leave gracefully and decisively. Arrange for an appropriate amount of overlap between yourself and your successor. Usually, as we mentioned, a few hours or a few days is enough. And plan a thorough handoff that's aligned with your successor's needs. For more on this, see this related video and article, Planning the Handoff. In most cases, a handoff and write-off approach is best to leaving the organization. But if you plan to have an ongoing role with your current organization, know that for this arrangement to work, it's got to work first for your successor. Make sure that your role is well defined and that your successor has control over the employment contract. Don't let your board saddle your successor with you. Also include some check-ins to make sure that the arrangement continues to work, and if not, know that you need to be the one that moves on. Don't take a seat on your organization's board of directors, at least for a year or two. Strive for closure for yourself and for those around you. Rituals such as that much maligned retirement dinner, they serve a vital role. They help people come to terms with change by providing a psychological line of demarcation that enables people to move on. The transition between chief executives is a watershed moment for an organization, and preparing an exit strategy can help ensure that you, your organization, your board, and your management team are all ready for the journey with a roadmap to follow. And speaking of roadmaps, if it's time to create your own exit strategy, get a copy of the Nonprofit CEO Succession Roadmap, your guide for the journey to life's next chapter. It's a complete guide for soon-to-retire executives to prepare themselves and their organizations to flourish after they leave the executive director role. It's available now from Amazon. You'll find links to that book and all the other resources mentioned in this video in the description below. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you back here for another video where I help nonprofit executives and boards navigate executive director succession and the other big transitions in their leadership journey.